Welcome to the Night Tube. I'm Stephen Knight, and I'm very pleased to welcome Louise Distras to the show. Louise, how are you doing?
Hey up, everybody.
Hey up, Chuck.
Hey up,
How
Chuck.
are you doing?
I'm all right. How are you, Stephen?
Good, thanks for asking. I'm just worried about the kind of northern quota of this episode, whether it might be too much for people. Might have to tone it down a little bit, I don't know.
Just stick some subtitles at bottom.
Yeah. Get a transcript up for this for sure. Louise, I suppose many people will be familiar with your work and what you do, but for those rude enough not to be, maybe you could just explain who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm from Wakefield, as you can tell by my accent, and I'm an independent singer-songwriter. I've been doing it for 10 years and been cancelled many times. This isn't my first rodeo, so...
It seems to be the hot topic, doesn't it? Cancellation at the minute. Just in terms of that, I don't know if you remember people were kind of saying cancellation's not a thing. They seem to have kind of progressed from that to, well, maybe it is a thing, but people deserve it. I think they started calling it accountability culture. I mean, before you kind of spoke publicly about this issue, which we'll get to, which is about gender and what a woman is, were you aware of the kind of culture war around cancellation culture and this battle going on between sort of trans right activists and so-called TERFs?
Well, the first time I got cancelled, which I'll go into in a bit, I actually didn't know that it was a thing. I didn't know that this was called being cancelled or that there was a culture of cancellation. I had absolutely no idea what were happening to me.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, what was the first thing that got you cancelled?
Do you know, I think in order to tell my story properly, I've got to actually go back many years to give proper context for my life and my cancellations and how insane all this is. Is that all right?
Please, this is what this show's for.
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, I'm doing what I've always done as a musician. And I've always spoken about women's rights and freedom of speech. And the reason why I care about this so much is because going right back to before I even was a musician, growing up in Wakefield in a single parent family, I had an absolutely horrible childhood. And every time I tried to stand up for myself or speak up for myself, I was punished, you see. So this self-censorship thing, it's something I'm very familiar with. And when I was 16, I ran away from home and I did what I needed to do to survive. And as a result, I found myself staying in women's shelters, in sheltered housing. So I know the importance of women having single-sex spaces, you see. And I also found myself in a lot of dangerous situations with dangerous blokes who took advantage of me. And these experiences left me with some very deep wounds and vulnerabilities, which then left me wide open to becoming exploited by the predators and pimps of the music industry later on down the line. So, and when I tried to walk away from a situation I was in, where I was effectively being gurued by a much older man, who I felt was very controlling over all aspects of my life and my career, he blocked the completion and release of my new album, Beauty After Bruises, and then basically destroyed my life. And that's when I experienced my first cancellation. And I didn't even know that that's what it was, you see. And what happened to me, it's actually very common for women in the music industry, but you don't often get to hear about their experiences because they're too scared to say anything. So I was very scared for a long time, but obviously I'm not anymore.
Wow. Okay. So that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of. I wasn't aware of that. I mean, I've been keeping an eye on your collision with the zealous foot soldiers of trans rights activism, but I wasn't aware of your background. So, I mean, first of all, thank you for speaking about that. I can imagine it's not necessarily easy to sort of dig up the past and things that have happened to you. And I suppose, I mean, this experience that you've had, this really difficult experience you've had, as kind of, would you say it's informed your resolve in that sense, in terms of saying what you think and not apologising for it?
Absolutely. I mean, in terms of the gender ideology stuff, I first started to question this in 2021, and that's because my ex-guitarist had this, well, I'll just say man in a dress boyfriend, and they wrote a load of crap about me on social media, you see, and then they reported me to the police for what they called transphobic hate speech. And that's when the penny first dropped for me, and I realised that the notion of this hate speech, it's very nefarious and subjective, and again, wide open to exploitation. And it's usually the case that these men in dresses, they use the law to, to bully women. And that's what it felt like in my case. So when it came to me coming back to the music industry to release my new album, I found myself in this position where it's like, okay, I've written all these songs about my life and everything in my life starts with me being a woman, but for some reason now everyone's asking, well, what is a woman? But everything starts with me being a woman, and how can I talk about my own life and my own music without first talking about the fact that I'm a woman? So...
that's a really interesting point to me, because it seems like women are going into this argument with one arm tied behind their back, because they're being policed on exactly what language they can use. And it seems to me like women can't talk about the reality of being a woman unless they can describe that reality accurately. And that I think that obviously includes the right to say, that's a man in a dress, which to many will be so beyond the pale and offensive and hateful and maybe worthy of a potential knock on the door from the police, rather. And then for the rest of us, it's just a valid observation about what's happening in reality, and has become important to say for all the reasons you've said. So I suppose my question in a roundabout way is, how have we got to this point where just accurately describing reality in a way that's important to the safety of women has become so taboo?
Oh God, I don't know. How did we get here? Yeah, it's such an existential question. I ask myself the same question every day. It makes no sense. Nothing about what's happening makes any sense whatsoever.
Let's talk about the arts and the music industry in general. Then, would you say? I've been listening to your music, and it seems to jump around different genres. Really, would you say you gravitate or lean to any one particular genre in particular?
I just write the sort of music that I like and that I want to hear myself. I don't really give too much thought to it. But in terms of my creative process, that relies on my ability to feel my own feelings and be able to have the space and freedom and safety for my imagination to roam, and for me to explore all these parts of myself that I would have otherwise maybe looked away from. The dark shadow aspects, the ugly parts of myself, the stuff that nobody wants to admit to, things like that. And in this current climate, I feel like that's something that's really under strain. It's an existential threat to the creative process. When it feels like you're being put into a very narrow bandwidth of what is acceptable, what isn't offensive. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I have this feeling. Yeah. I am not, knowledgeable about the music industry in any way, but I had this feeling of music gone by that it was sort of, there was almost a punk attitude of, you'd look to artists for the kind of controversial opinions on society and going against the mainstream. There was a kind of a fuck the man attitude, which was always fun. Yeah. And now they very much seems like a pretend the man's a woman attitude, which is have mainstream artists become very establishment, where they've become toothless and all kind of parrot the same talking points.
In terms of mainstream, let me think how to answer this.
I suppose what I'm getting at is, there seems to be very few artists willing to publicly deviate from the narrative of trans women or women. It seems like, given what's happened to you can kind of understand that they want to avoid controversy and getting cancelled and things like that. I suppose, I have an experience where I hear from a lot of people privately, a lot of people who are not public figures I hear from mostly, some people who are quite well known in sort of movies, and the industry will send me private messages to say, I kind of agree with what you're saying, but I'd get slaughtered if I said it publicly. Do you hear from other people in the industry who have kind of silently got your back but are too afraid to speak up?
Oh, God, no. No, never. No, God, no. Any musicians that previously supported me in any way, God, they've all unfollowed me on social media and distanced themselves from me. and denounced me. Like, for me, I see the music industry as being very monotheistic. It's very culty. You know, if you don't go along with whatever the narrative is at any given moment, then, you know, you're cast out into the wilderness. So it's like, a lot of musicians who refuse to take the vaccine, you know, they got fired from their bands. Pete Parada, the drummer from Offspring, he was chucked out of Offspring for not getting the vaccine. And then, you know, if you say that men can't be women, you get called a right-wing Nazi. And then when the Israel-Palestine thing started, they said anybody who supports Jews is a right-wing Nazi, you know. So if I wasn't being cancelled for this, then I'd be cancelled for something else. You know, I really don't think it's a case of if they come for you now, it's just when. And even if they haven't got a reason, they'll just invent one anyway. It's really weird.
It's difficult because I'm really attracted to issues and topics that are shut down or screamed down, or these very low levels of freedom of thought surrounding them. So I'm kind of attached to every single topic that will get you cancelled at some point, just for wanting to discuss it, I suppose. So I mean, let's get to the comments then, or the first thing you said that really ignited this whole gender, trans rights activism issue for you. What exactly did you say, and what prompted it?
Well, as I said earlier, it was the feeling of, when I came back to the music industry and I've got all these experiences that I've lived through in my life and that I write about in my songs, because all my songs are real life stories. And, you know, there's this existential question being thrown around, what is a woman? And I was doing an interview in May to promote my new album, and I just said, look, I'm a woman, and a woman's an adult human female, and I can't talk about my music without first talking about being a woman. And then since then, the music industry just shut its doors on me. The platforms that once championed me, you know, they denounced me as a Nazi and as a transphobe. And then there's all the usual, you know, threats in the comments sections on social media, being threatened by the trans rights extremists. And so when I asked my booking agency, Midnight Mango, for help to keep me and me women fans safe at my own gigs, I got an email from the managing director, Matt Bartlett, and he didn't acknowledge that there was a risk to my safety or anything like that. He just said, look, you know, if you continue to publicly deny that trans women are women, your position is going to have a detrimental effect on your career. And then I've been deplatformed by Big Cartel and Bandcamp. And Bandcamp just deleted my artist page. And then all the revenue that was due to be paid out to me just disappeared into thin air. And then recently I was fired by my booking agent, Midnight Mango. That's a recent thing too. It's just been one thing after another, and it's still going on. It's relentless.
I mean, listen, I mean, very sorry that's happened to you for a start. I mean, just listening to that, it's no wonder there's a kind of climate of fear, whereas people who may agree with you are too scared to, because obviously they want to pay the bills, they want the career. I mean, explain to me what Bandcamp is. I don't think I'm familiar with it. Is it kind of a music streaming website?
Yeah, it is. So, you know, like there's like iTunes and Amazon, Spotify,
right,
Deezer and all that. So Bandcamp is an online platform for independent musicians. So when I got put on the naughty step by my booking agent and they wouldn't book me any gigs before they fired me, I relied on Bandcamp to sell CDs and vinyl and digital downloads. And it was a really good way for me listeners to support me directly. Because the money goes straight to the artist, and then, you know, Bandcamp just takes their 15% cut or whatever.
And you can obviously, I imagine you can log into this and you can see revenue and sales and streams and things like that.
Yeah.
So when did you first realise something wasn't quite right with your Bandcamp account? It
was on the 30th of October. I was just, you know, doing my thing, logging in to check what sales, to see what orders have been placed, which CDs and vinyls I need to send out to where, and I couldn't log in. It just said this artist does not exist. So then I was going onto my browser and I was typing the web address for the Bandcamp page, and it just wasn't there. It just disappeared.
And I'm assuming you reached out to them. What was the response that you received, if you did receive one?
Well, I've reached out to them, and Rosie and Denise from Freedom of the Arts, they published an open letter and reached out to him. The Daily Mail reached out to him. Pretty sure GB News reached out to him as well, but they haven't. Bandcamp just haven't given any of us a response or given us a reason why this has happened. And this happened over a month ago, and I still haven't received a penny from them for the sales of my music on their platform.
Oh, wow. So it's just been a complete wall of silence. They've got an outstanding,
Yeah,
funds that they need to pay to you for sales and things like that. And they've basically just cancelled a revenue stream from for you, removed you from a platform, and provided no justification whatsoever for it.
no justification. And I mean, I'd love to know why. Is it the case? Did I break their terms and conditions or something? I don't know. So I'm just totally in the dark about it. I don't know why. I mean, in my lyrics there was nothing controversial or discriminatory or anything like that. There was nothing like that in my lyrics.
When did your booking agent decide they were no longer going to have a relationship with you?
It was over the summer that I got the email from the managing director saying if I don't comply and say trans women are women, then my career will face detrimental effects. And then it was a couple of weeks after Bandcamp deplatformed me. That's when they fired me. So that would have been about middle of November that happened.
Right. And did they give you any reasons as to why? I mean, I know they give you that warning up front, but they said exactly why afterwards.
Yeah, they did. It's because so in September I was part of the Daily Mail piece, which included 5 ordinary women like myself who'd been cancelled for expressing their views about gender ideology. And I explained what had happened with my booking agency. So the Daily Mail reached out to Midnight Mango for comment, and Matt Bartlett denied what I said. He said I was lying about what he said to me. And I published a screenshot of the email in which he said this to me on Twitter. And a couple of hours later, he emailed me and he said that they were releasing me from my contract. And the reason he gave me is that he thinks that I'm defaming him and his booking agency on social media to fuel my anti-trans, transphobic agenda.
Wow, that's a lot. I mean, so essentially, you accused him of saying a certain thing. You then he denied this publicly. And then you produced the receipts, basically the email to say he said that. I mean, this is a big headache for them, really, isn't it? Because after the Mayor Forstater ruling, that ruled that basically belief in biological sex is protected under the law. And your comments that, a woman is an adult human female falls well under those parameters. So, I mean, in a way, there's a potential argument here for them discriminating illegally for your views.
Mm. Yeah.
And has that been put to them at all? Has anyone kind of pushed forward that on your behalf? Maybe, I don't know if you're in touch with like the Free Speech Union or anything like that.
No, nobody's put that forward. When I spoke to the Daily Mail about this, obviously, I showed them the emails and everything went through their legal department, because they've got to do their fact checking, haven't they? So it was really quite something that the Daily Mail had fact checked everything, but then he still lied to them. It's really quite something. I have been asked many times by my followers on social media, am I going to sue these companies? And to be honest with you, I wouldn't feel comfortable crowdfunding legal costs to sue these companies, especially when, we're living in a cost of living crisis. It seems like a bit of a luxury project to go around suing people when it's blatantly obvious, what it is that they've done, that they have discriminated against me. I know women who've been involved in suing these organisations and crowdfunding these legal costs, and these legal cases have had such a parasitic effect on their life. And I think, well, wow, if I wanted to sue these people, how much money is that going to cost? What, like £500,000? you know? I mean,
Yeah.
just imagine what an amazing album I could record with that sort of money. I would rather take that money and actually put it back into being an artist.
Yeah, with legal action of that kind, even if you win, the process is still the punishment as
It
well.
is, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, in regards to, I mean, just pulling on that thread of creating new music, are you still, after everything that's happened? I know you said you're like an independent musician. Are you still in a place now where you can go and record new music if that was your desire?
Um, I mean, I have got a new album that I've written that I would absolutely love to record next year. But I'm whether any of the recording studios in the UK are going to accept me, I actually don't know. So it
I mean,
might be the case that I have to
sorry
go
to interrupt,
abroad.
just to get my
No, sorry.
head round the industry here. In terms of
Mm.
recording studios, is this a place where you can go in and book time and you are assigned a producer, or is this something that has to be in collaboration with a label? How would it work? I mean, me just being not very enlightened on this issue, thinks basically anyone could just book studio time if they wanted. Are you saying that could be denied you based on your views?
Yeah, yeah, it could be. And also, um, I mean, for example, with my last album that I recorded that in San Francisco, and it was produced by Bruce Springsteen's producer, Ross Peterson.
Nice.
And then I finished it in London at Damon Albarn's studio with Stephen Street, and Stephen Street is best known for his work with the Smiths and Morrisey.
Oh, legend.
And yeah, Blur, Kaiser Chiefs, Pretenders, Cranberries, all the best stuff, I mean, I might stand a chance. I mean, maybe Stephen might be up for working with me because he's used to working with gobshite, controversial artists. But
I think if you can stick Morrissey,
yeah, yeah,
he seems a
yeah,
rarity in terms of like I agree with some of the things he says. I mean, I'm a massive Smiths fan. I'm from Manchester as well. It's mandatory. It's one of them things
yeah,
that is kind of enforced, like North Korea. But I mean, he seems rare in the fact that he still says whatever he wants. I'm not saying it hasn't had a
yeah,
cost. I think his last album got shelved, didn't it, for similar reasons. He's going on, issues with the label. I mean, there just doesn't appear to be
yeah.
a lot of artists out there who are kind of controversial and saying what they think anymore. It feels all very tepid to me.
Yeah, I mean, Morris is one of my favourite artists of all time. I listen to Morris every single day.
What's your favourite Smith song? We have to do this.
What's my favourite Smith song? Oh, it's one that goes, stop me, oh, stop me. Stop me
Yeah,
if you think that you had this one before.
yeah, classic. I ping between like Asleep or The Boy with a Thorn in His Side. I think I'll always put them on. Or Last Night I Dreamt Somebody Loved Me. I think that they're the ones. Let's just talk about Morrissey for an hour. This will be fun. No, I'm kidding. So I mean, this has really thrown a spanner in the works for you just creatively. I mean, it's not only that you kind of lost relationships and revenue, they're kind of taking the tools away from you in a sense to kind of do the thing you love, the thing you live for.
Yeah, I mean, in what I was going to say before was in terms of working with the producers in the studios and stuff. It's like these producers, they're going to put their name to you, aren't they? They're going to put their name to you if they like you and if they like your work, stuff like that. But it's kind of like I'm like such a pariah now in the music industry that like anybody who's associated with me is just going to get so much shit for it. So it's up to them whether they want to do something artistic and creative or whether they want to create something that's going to be a propaganda piece. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen. I mean, it might be the case that I have to go abroad to record. I've been chatting with a record label over in America, and I've sent them the demos, to my new album that I've written. So they might be up for doing something. Don't know. I could go on forever and talk about the negative aspects of what it's like, but for me personally, I think that there's never been a more exciting time to be an artist. There's so much going on in the world. There's so much to talk about, so much to sing about. It's brilliant, and I just want to embrace that. And because I'm a bloody artist. I don't understand why more people don't really. There's going to be a lot of amazing art that's going to come out of this. So
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Like
yeah,
applying social pressure on things does tend to produce new and exciting art.
yeah.
Well, I apologise for having to prolong the negativity for slightly longer because I think there's
Oh
something
no,
important
no. Oh
we need to
God,
address because you've given us
no.
a really good overview there of kind of the industry and how that's responded to you. But one of the most kind of aggressive and hostile aspects of this whole thing are the kind of very online so-called trans rights activists or people that claim to speak on behalf of transgender people. I've had my own experience with that, probably absolutely nothing on the
Have you?
level you have. I mean, I've had police come to my house for death threats issued online onto my email inbox from trans rights activists before. What's your experience been of the kind of like the mob, the online mob?
It's just constant, Stephen. It's just constant flooding of my comment sections with rape and death threats all day, all night, just all the time. And it's just a constant stream of negativity. And it does take its toll. I have good days and bad days with how I deal with it, but I think if it didn't affect me in some way, then I wouldn't be human, would I? It's a hard thing for anybody to go through, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree, and it's so easy, isn't it? Because it takes these individuals a second to hit send on a tweet, and but they seem to, for
Yeah,
me, I mean, they seem to be very well organised. It seems very targeted a lot of the time,
yeah,
and I don't know if it's just me being biased or uncharitable, but it seems like they are people with a lot of personality issues going on. Anyway, they don't seem the most polite and reasonable and civil people. I mean, just to pivot towards something which I've been kind of watching and keeping my eye on with kind of dark amusement is Billy Bragg, for instance. He's become quite emblematic of somebody in the music industry who's all in on the gender ideology. He seems like an incredibly staunch advocate for women's rights, just as long as the women in question used to be men, seems to be the common denominator. And I've noticed you two, I mean, you've met him at some point. I noticed you two having words on social media. I've noticed he's taken issue with basically every high-profile gender-critical woman at some point. What happened? I mean, who was Billy Bragg to you, and who is he now? What happened between you two?
Well, God, going right back to the beginning, very early on in my career, I I played at this like crappy workers' festival in Sheffield. Just me and my acoustic guitar. That's where I met Anne Scargill. She co-founded the Women Against Pit Closures movement in the 80s. And anyway, she sang this song to me called Women of the Working Class, which Billy Bragg should know that song if he's a real protest singer. And she said to me, she goes, look, it's really important for women to have their songs. You must write a song for women. And that's what I did. And I released my first single called The Hand You Hold on International Women's Day. And the chorus, it goes, and what we look like means more to you than what we say and what we do. Now, for some reason, Billy Bragg loved that song. And he started like championing me as like the new breed, of like angsty protest singers or whatever. And he invited me to play his stage at Glastonbury, and I played there twice at left field. And then so I know him, and I haven't seen or spoken to him like since before lockdown. And then after the Daily Mail piece came out, he had a pop at me over my clothes, didn't he?
Yeah, what was that? What was he saying? That was it. I totally forgot about that. That's what makes this even more sinister, because a man criticizing a woman for what she chooses to wear is straight out of the misogynist playbook. Yet he centers himself as some progressive defender of women. It's bizarre.
Yeah, it is weird, isn't it?
What did he say about your clothes? I can't quite remember.
I can't even remember what he said. It was just some crap about like something about me wearing a dress that appeals to Daily Mail readers or something.
Oh, it was because it was quite modest, wasn't it? Was it kind of? He was kind of was he sort of accusing you of covering up to kind of appeal to the sort of right wing conservative audience? It seems like it was in that kind of area.
Oh, some bollocks,
Some bollocks.
Yeah,
is about right.
He didn't like my dress, and he had to tell everybody that he didn't like my dress. So it's just like, oh, for God's sakes, grow up, Billy.
It is strange because I've always, I mean, one of my key focuses over the last 10, 15 years has been kind of conservative religion, and mainly how that punches down on freedom of expression and mostly women as well. So that's been my kind of focus really, and it seems like this whole gender ideology thing is almost a very secular, godless religion, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
There are blasphemy codes, there are public witch burnings, there are dogmas and tenets and all sorts of things. I mean, I don't know where you are religiously or spiritually, but does this kind of speak to you like a religion, this kind of overzealous advocation of transgender rights?
I think it's a cult.
Yeah, that's a better word.
Yeah, it's a cult completely. And I know, and I know this and feel this way from experience because, as I said, when I was growing up and after running away from home, that left me with certain vulnerabilities that got exploited later on down the line, and for these people to be like, oh, come over here, we'll be your family. It's like, it's weird, isn't it? It feels like to me that their philosophy for attracting their followers, and especially their female followers, is like the same as like what Jim Jones and Charlie Manson did in the 60s in the Summer of Love in San Francisco, which is, it's always find the ones who are bent or cracked, but not completely broken, innit? So I think given my experience growing up, I think I was prime cult fodder, really, to be taken in by the punk cult. Punk rock's another cult as well.
That's interesting. I mean, there is a kind of I forgot what was for the kind of like the overt male feminist who used it solely to appeal to women. I think it's been termed the sneaky fucker method, which tends to make a lot of sense.
I like that because I used to just call them brochurists, but sneaky fuckers, like, that's a really good accurate term as well. I like it.
I'm always. I mean, I'm. Like I'm an old school, like emancipation feminist, I suppose. But as soon as I see a man that announces himself as a feminist in this modern era, I'm instantly suspicious of anything that comes out of his mouth after that. But I mean, you reminded me of something before, because I'm working class, but I've never really. I tried not to let it define me in any way. I try to view it as kind of another version of identity politics, to sort of play as a class warrior. I never use it to play the victim. I don't use it to define me. However, I've never felt more working class than I have in these last 7 or 8 years with this new, what's been termed woke ideology or progressive ideology. Do you think there's a massive class aspect to this? Because to me, it all feels like a very middle class luxury beliefs, comfortable existence obsession, all the things they are so laser focused on, all the things they would like to destroy ordinary people for disagreeing with. It feels like a class issue to me. I don't know how you feel about it.
Well, I was going to say pretty much what you just said, in that it does seem to be a very middle class thing. It's luxury beliefs. People who've got too much time on their hands, basically. And I first noticed this, but I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know what to call it. But I noticed this in the early days of my music career, because at that time my music was very angry and finger pointy, and I had a chip on my shoulder because of what I went through as a kid. And so I briefly passed through like the punk scene, and I was like opening for like Billy Bragg and bands like Buzzcocks and The Damned. And I mean, I got banned from this festival called Rebellion Festival, which I actually consider one of the greatest achievements.
There's some irony there, isn't there? Getting banned from a rebellion festival. Wonderful. I'm just trying to set the scene for what I'm about to say, you see, so I can give everyone proper context for all this madness. But yeah, so Rebellion Festival, it's the world's biggest punk festival. I got banned because I'm so punk, I piss off all the punks or something. And anyway, and I used to think that it was like really like super rebellious and anti-establishment, But then I was like, hang on a minute, you lot are all right with boot as long as you're the ones that are wearing it. And the scene was like full of all these like self-appointed authorities and gatekeepers, and they were 9 out of 10 times like blokes who just contributed nothing but the most extreme example of misogyny and wokery that I've ever experienced.
Yeah, they all just seem to have like way too much time on their hands. You know, they were always like, yeah, fuck the police, but they'd go around acting like cops and policing each other. And, you know, that's not right. You know, oh, you're thinking the wrong thoughts, or you're wearing the wrong thing, or you know what I mean? It's like being under this intense like scrutiny all the time and inventing things that aren't even happening and problems that don't even exist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mentioned this on a panel a couple of weeks ago. I was saying, like, if you're, I mean, so a lot of these people, the biggest struggle they have in their life is walking past an old statue that they don't like. And that's a very, very comfortable existence, really, isn't it, in the modern era? But, I mean, just looking back to, I mean,
Yeah.
you're somebody who's very principled in your stand on this. I agree with your your viewpoint on sex and gender, obviously, but it's objectively, it has had a huge toll, kind of emotionally, financially, professionally as well. Is there a part of you that thinks, if I could just go back in time, I might just keep my mouth shut, or is that just not something that's in your wheelhouse?
Oh God, no. No. No way. No. It's like that what's that Edith Piaf song? Je regrette rien. I regret nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
No,
Perfect.
and no, and also, but here's the thing, right? Not once has anybody ever actually told me to or asked me to apologize. And even if they did, like they could offer me like £1 million and give me a record deal if I apologize, and I just wouldn't anyway, because um nothing's ever enough for these people, and I'm not gonna build the rest of my life and my career as an apology when I did anything wrong. And I think that apologising only puts blood in the water, and it makes it harder for other women musicians to come forward as well. So, um, I'm going off on one again here, but when
No,
I
that's perfect.
well, when I was part of the Daily Mail piece back in September, I was very I was actually quite pushy with the journalist who wrote the piece, Jill, bless her, she's amazing. But I was quite pushy, and I said, look, I'm not going to apologise, and I really want my position to be clear on this. And I said, please make sure you get the quote right, which was, look, I don't care if people think I'm transphobic. If men in dresses want to claim to be women, then women were always going to put up a fight to defend our hard-won rights. And I thought I couldn't make myself any clearer than that. But for some reason, these trans terrorists who keep flooding my comment sections, they seem very committed to misunderstanding that quote. And I thought I couldn't make myself any clearer, and it's like, no, this is my position. I'm sticking to it. And my attitude now is the same as what it's always been. It's like, here's me, here's my music. If you don't like it, you can fuck off. And if you tell me I can't say anything, I'm going to say it 10 times louder.
Amen. So I mean, that blood in the water comment is perfect, because, like you said, they don't. These people, when they're demanding you apologize, they don't actually want you to say sorry. They don't actually want you to change your mind or have a learning experience. They want to destroy you, and that as soon as you apologize to the mob, you give them exactly what they want. You show them some weakness. You're giving them an inch, they'll take a yard, kind of thing. So I'm of this mind, really, that I will live in a fucking bin before I apologize for not doing anything wrong, kind of thing. That's my principled ethos on this. We'll see when I get there how strongly I feel about it. But yeah, like you say, these people are completely unreasonable. They will brook no difference in opinion whatsoever.
But also, Stephen, what a fabulous bin to be in. All the best people are in this bin that we're in.
Bin party, yeah.
Yeah, we'll just have a big bin party. It's like, like, all I've done is state biological fact and reality, and it's like, look, if reality's transphobic, then I'm a big old transphobe. Who cares? Like, these people, they're destroying the English language, so words don't even mean anything nowadays anyway, so...
No, I've become very thick-skinned when it comes to smears and labels. It means nothing to me anymore, which is a shame, really, because it's just blunting... important words. Like it's been amazing to see the word Nazi start getting thrown around in the direction of gender critical women now. These are mainly like kind of left wing, middle aged socialists. Whenever I go to protests, and they're suddenly Nazis because they'd rather not see a penis. in the changing rooms or toilets and things like that. But I mean, is there some cause for optimism here? Are we seeing a slight shift? Are the adults getting back in the room? I mean, I don't know as much as whether people love or hate the Tories. They do seem to now be making sense on this issue in terms of, I mean, Kemi Badenoch made some great points in Parliament the other day. We're seeing the closure of like the Tavistock Clinic. We had the Mayor Forstater case. It seems like people are feeling slightly more empowered to talk honestly about this issue, or am I kind of stuck in an echo chamber?
Well, I might be stuck in an echo chamber as well. But I do wish that people would just have the balls to just say, well, look, I disagree with you. Like, without trying to destroy you and take away your livelihood and threaten you with violence. How did we get there? I mean, in terms of the future, I guess I can only speak from within my little bubble as a musician, but I think that, as I said earlier, that it's a very exciting time to be an artist. There's a lot going on in the world and there's so much to talk about. So I think there's going to be a lot of really great art to come out of all of this. And what's happening is that these cancelled artists like myself, and then you've got, like 5 Times August in America and Brian McPherson, and a bunch of others, we're all coming together to build, like a new music industry with a proper counterculture where artists get to have a proper say about our own lives and our own work. And also, more importantly, where we can let the audience decide for themselves who they want to listen to and who they want to buy tickets to go see. So that's something that's happening organically, that's coming together. It's like we're building like this, what's the word that they use? It's like a parallel economy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I'm trying to say is I think that people have just had enough of this woke shit now, so they just won't go anywhere.
Oh, looking for alternatives, aren't they?
Yeah, they're looking for alternatives, and I think that because if people who if people who love music are being dictated to what they can and can't listen to, say like by people like my booking agency and my and then like by Bandcamp, it's like really authoritarian, isn't it? Like people want to be able to decide for themselves. So I think that people are going to be, well, they already are doing, is that they're searching for alternatives, and and I think that this that's where this counterculture is going to be born out of.
That's a great point, and you've hit the nail on the head there with something that an aspect of this that I don't think a lot of people fully get to grips with, and that's this idea of other people deciding on your behalf what you can listen to and what you can read and what you can see. That's always rubbed me up the wrong way. Whenever somebody would be deplatformed at a college or something, or a university, and even if I had no interest in hearing what that person had to say at the time, the fact that somebody had already made that decision on my behalf used to really wind me up the wrong way. And I think we are seeing a lot of people now who are kind of pushing back to it. I suppose in a way, I mean, I don't know if you can get an idea on. I mean, you have a fan base. You had a fan base before your public witch trial, and I'm just wondering, in terms of keeping an eye on the numbers there, because I imagine you would have lost a lot of fans who was kind of like, I love the music but hate politics. I'm no longer a fan. However, you would have probably gained a fair amount of interest from gender critical people who are like, had seen what had happened to you and thought, I need to check out the music and show some solidarity. Do you have any kind of grasp or idea on where how big your fan base is now as a result?
Oh, it's way bigger than what it was before. For every person that's like denounced me and stopped listening to me, there's been like another 10 or 20 people that have discovered my music and they really love it. And also even like my original fan base from before, I've sensed that they're getting sick of everything that's happening as well, because they see what's happening to me and how ridiculous all this gets. And they've started putting in the comment sections, look, this is really, really unfair. And they say that they're sick of being told how to think and what they can and can't say, and that that everything's like offensive nowadays. You can't say or do anything without somebody getting offended or someone getting offended on somebody else's behalf. People are just sick of it. I think they're just sick of this woke shit, You know, they want to just be left to just enjoy their films and their music and, you know, go out and have a laugh without being preached at and dictated to and being subjected to some puritanical pronoun ritual every time they leave the house. It's not life, is it? It's not a life. It's a cult.
That is a perfect point to end on, I think.
Yeah.
This has flown by. Just before I let you get back to what's left of your morning, is there anything you want to point people towards? Where can they find out more about you? Where can they find your music, most importantly?
Well, my music's available at louisedistras.com and, you know, on iTunes and Amazon and all that. But,
it's
I'm
on
not
Spotify
wearing it today, but yes, but Spotify's shit. Like, that's a whole, we could do
They
a whole
screw
another hour
artists
on just
over,
how
don't they?
shit Spotify is. Oh, yeah. So then that's good to link into my next point, because Spotify pay an artist 0.003 pence per stream, right? So it would take something like 5,000 streams for an
a single
artist.
song.
5,000 streams of a single song for an artist to earn what it would cost to buy a t-shirt, you see. So one t-shirt is the equivalent of 5,000 streams on Spotify. So what I did was, when everybody started calling me a TERF and slurring it, I'm like, hang on a minute. They all, like, suffragette was a slur in the early 1900s, but the suffragettes reclaimed it as a badge of honour, so I can do the same, you know. So I got these t-shirts with Emmeline Pankhurst, and it says TERF is the new punk on it, because it is a badge of honour being a TERF, you know, and it is punk as fuck to be a TERF as well. So I've got these spiffy TERF is the new punk t-shirts. I should have worn one, really, but, you know, they're for sale on my website. That's probably the best way that anyone can support me, really, by buying a shirt or a CD or a vinyl. Don't go on Spotify, it's rubbish.
Perfect. Louise, this has been a pleasure. I'm really grateful for you speaking to me. I know it's been a difficult time for you, and it's not always the easiest thing to talk about, but I really appreciate how kind of candid and to the point you've been about it. I think a lot of people will get a lot from it and better understand what exactly has happened to you over the last year or so.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Stephen. It's been a laugh. It's been good. I've enjoyed it.
Been fun. We should do it again sometime.
Yeah, definitely.